Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Be a Friend Friday. This is actually our first Be a Friend Friday of December. I can't believe it's already December, and we wrapped up American Diabetes Month the other week, but we're in full swing for the end of the year now in December, and we're so excited to have you joining us today for Be a Friend Friday. Just get ready to connect and learn and be inspired by our guest today. My name is Abby Bornemeyer, and I'm the Social Media and Digital Events Manager here at the American Diabetes Association. And today we're going to be talking with our wonderful guest, Shay Webb, and she's going to be talking a little bit about her journey living with type 1 diabetes. So if you have any questions during this event, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we would love to talk about them, and we'll go from there. And also, too, we love to know where you're tuning in from. So please drop in where you're tuning in from in the chat. We'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from, and we're really excited for this conversation. So, without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Shay. Shay, welcome.
Thank you, Abby. It's
How are you
an
doing?
honor just to be here. I'm
Yeah,
doing good. We're
good.
living, striving, and surviving.
Good. Well, thank you so much for being here today and for your willingness to share your story. We're so excited to learn from you and connect with you. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. So, my name is Shay Webb, and I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I've had diabetes the last 15 years as of November 5th this year. So, I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old in 2007. And I feel like diabetes it's a blessing in disguise because I feel like if it hadn't had come into my life the way it did, I wouldn't have done half of the things that I'm doing now, especially within the advocacy sector. So, in some ways, I am grateful for it, but I will say I got really connected with the ADA as a member of the Persons with Diabetes Council, where I have a wonderful time collaborating with other persons and allies with diabetes, in addition to the researchers and team to make this a place that is type none.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, Shay, for, introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your diagnosis. Do you remember much like what was going through your mind when you were diagnosed? I know you were young at 8 years old, but do you remember much about it at
Yes.
the time and what was going
Ab-
through your mind?
Absolutely. Ironically enough, I went to the doctor. It was like Monday morning, and I was told, in the car, like, okay, we're just gonna go to the doctor. Then, you can go home and rest up. So I'm just thinking, like, okay, I'm gonna get to get orange juice and other food after I leave. So it's all gonna be fun. And then they're like, she has diabetes, get to the nearest hospital and make no stops. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess not. So it was just like a shift really quickly. So originally, it was my mother who saw my symptoms. I just was very different. I was a person who didn't like to sleep. I was that person who was like a night owl. Everyone went to sleep before me, but I was always tired. I was drinking a lot of water, going to the bathroom a lot, and it was just symptom after symptom. And diabetes is very prominent in my family. So they began to recognize what the symptoms were. So she calls the pediatrician, and initially they said they couldn't see me until Thursday. And she's like, no, we're going to see you soon. So she kept talking to them and pushing, and they were able to see me Monday morning. So I remember being in the waiting area before they even opened at 8 o'clock in the morning, and just going back and them saying, you have it, but we don't know which one it is. Most likely it's one, but things are changing. So it could be two, but we still have to do tests. And from there, it was that week-long stay at the hospital where people are running in and out, and you're learning new things and learning how to eat, learning how to give injections, learning how to take the blood sugar. And it was a lot for an 8-year old at the time, but I'm fortunate enough that, I had a family, especially my mother, who pushed me to learn more and to do it myself and to be independent. So it's like that week, I was in the hospital getting adjusted and really soaking in the information that you're a person with diabetes now. And the next week, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to teach you all of this and you're going to learn it. And when my mom told me that, I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't want to do that. But I had to do that. And I'm so glad that she did that, because now that I'm older and I'm in college, and even when I was growing up, I was able to be more independent because I knew what I needed to do to stay healthy.
Wow, that's a lot, and being diagnosed at such a young age. I mean, you're still figuring out figuring out life. You're so young, you're in school, and being a kid is so hard. So to have that diagnosis, I'm sure that was a lot, and to not be told to right away what type it was, and I'm sure that's a lot of information to all take in. But, it sounds like you're doing great now today, and I know you said too, like your diabetes ended up being a blessing in disguise. So, we're really excited to learn a little bit more about that as we continue talking. So, you've been living with type 1 now for a while. Have you experienced any physical and mental change challenges over the years?
For the most part, I have been pretty steadfast. However, I do have another autoimmune disease to my diabetes. So when I was 8 years old, I got diagnosed with diabetes. But when I was 18 years old, I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So it's been another physical ailment that I've had to go through. And with that, it's more of making sure the medications and the therapies for one disease doesn't conflict with the other. And it's the importance of, staying active, eating healthy. For the most part, I like to stick to a whole foods pescatarian diet where I try to avoid meat. But, holidays are coming up, things are happening. I will definitely give myself leeway, give myself a break if I need to. But for the most part, just staying healthy. And I think mentally, at first, it was a question that came up like, are you depressed? Do you have any depressive symptoms? And fortunately, I can say I was pretty good, because the way diabetes was taught to me is that you're still you.
Mhm.
This is just something, one more thing that you have to do in the morning. It's like brushing your teeth. Okay, well, now you have to brush your teeth and check your blood sugar, and then you go to school. And just to think of it from that normality point of view, that nothing is really changing. This is a part of my identity. This isn't my identity. That allowed me to keep my spirits up and to allow me to share that positivity with other people around me who may have diabetes or who may not. Sometimes we just have disabilities and sometimes they're invisible, but just to show someone else that it's okay and that we all go through bad days and we will bounce back and we can keep on going, because even the most positive person has those weary days and those days where they're just tired and they don't know what else to do. And it's okay to feel that. It's got to get back up and to keep on going, because there's so much greater in front of you. And that's just the mindset I had to use mentally, in addition to not allowing my physical ailments to get me down as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think that, just hearing you talk about living with diabetes, you have a very positive outlook on things, which is so important, you know, just to stay positive about things. And I like how you said too, like you are not diabetes. You live with it. It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't You are Shay, you are not diabetes. And I think that is so important, for anyone who's tuning in right now too, just to keep that, in the back of your head. Your diabetes isn't you. You live with it. And it's a part of, your lifestyle and routine and everything. And your day-to-day life might look a little different, but it's just something you add to your routine, just like brushing your teeth, like you mentioned. But it's so important. And it's important to keep your mental health in check too when living with diabetes, because that's a lot to carry on. And if you keep all those thoughts and everything in your mind, that's a lot to take on. So always I recommend and encourage everyone, to share your story too, like Shay is doing right now. I think it's important, and give yourself grace too. I know, Shay, you said you like to, live a healthy lifestyle and stuff, but like you mentioned, the holidays are coming up. And if you have hard days and bad days, that doesn't necessarily like need to wreck your next day. You give yourself the grace, and tomorrow is a new day, so don't be too hard on yourself. um,
Yes. And like you were saying, don't let someone else tell your story
right.
because they can try to correct it based on textbooks or what they've seen or what, their loved ones have had to go through. But your story is your own and own it. And this doesn't mean that you have to own it and be an advocate and be in front of everybody all of the time 24/7. Sometimes the most vocal people are the most quiet. And that's not to say, don't say when you need something, but advocate for your needs, but then advocate what you feel comfortable. Tell people what you feel comfortable, not what they're pushing you to for them to know or what society is expecting for you to tell. Just show what makes you comfortable and show what you need. Because if you don't talk about the things that you need, no one's going to know. And that doesn't just go for your peers, but that goes for your healthcare team. That goes for your coworkers. That goes for your professors. Anywhere you are, you need to advocate for your health, or else no one else is going to.
Right. That is completely true. You need to advocate for yourself, and you own your own story. No one else owns that for you. You are your own person, and you know yourself better than anyone else knows you. So just keep that in mind, and always advocate for your own needs, and not don't let, there's so much information out there and everything, and just don't let everything, I guess, influence your thoughts and your decisions, because you are your own person. And reach out when you need the help, like you were saying, Shay, and reach out to your healthcare providers. But just know that you own your own story, and your needs come first. And just don't let other people's comments and everything influence yourself. And I know, like, with the holidays and stuff coming up, like the stress of sometimes family gatherings and maybe being around people who don't fully understand diabetes, that's always a challenge. So it's definitely important to just take a deep breath, and especially before some of those situations, and just reassure yourself, you are your own person, and you are strong, and you can do this. So important. So, Shay, we talked a little bit about mental health, and you talked a little bit about your journey with it as well. Are there any other ways that you manage your mental health while living with diabetes?
Absolutely. I'm not saying that you need to go out and stamp I am a person with diabetes on my forehead, but it's fun and it's really enlightening to find other people who are living with it. Because I can say that some of the friends that I've made, I probably wouldn't have known them or met them if we didn't have diabetes. And just knowing them has made this journey so much easier because it's not always just diabetes. You have other things in common that could just be that first connecting point. So I have a quote unquote diabestie, diabuddy, and we're both African American girls living in Wilmington. We both love the arts. We both have diabetes. And in college, we both went Greek. So we both joined sororities. So we have a lot that's in common that we can talk about, whereas we don't always have to go to each other like, oh, my blood sugar's high. Can you relate to this? It could be like, okay, are you going to this show? Or did you see this artist? Or something like that, that you get to bond and connect with a person on a deeper level. And I would just say the mental side of diabetes, let that be your stepping stone. If you don't know how to start that conversation, or if you're not sure if they're comfortable, just feelers, see what they want to do. If they see one of your devices, are they comfortable opening up? I actually had a friend, and I was already friends with this person for a while, but one day I decided to wear one of my sensors on my arm, and she saw it, and she just had a whole conversation like, yeah, I've been seeing that and I've been thinking of getting it. And I'm like, wait, I don't think you know what this is. This is kind of awkward for a second. And then she did. And then she started telling her story. And it was something that opened up a whole new world that I didn't even know existed as long as I had known this person.
Wow, that's incredible. I think it is so important to, like you said, meeting people, who are living also with diabetes and creating that support group for yourself of friends. And, it doesn't always have to be all about diabetes, but just having people that you can relate to and talk to, like when you are having, a hard day or things like that, because those people fully understand the challenges that you are experiencing. But Shay, how have you gone about meeting other people living with diabetes? Like, where did you turn to?
Yes. So when I was first diagnosed, I was involved with JDRF, but just me in general, I'm a really active, engaging, I like to talk to people type of person.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's just wearing my pump, and it's like, wait a minute, I've seen that on the commercials. And then we'll get in the conversation, or joining Facebook groups. And the biggest way that I have grown to know different people with diabetes, especially, is when I went off to college and started my chapter of the College Diabetes Network, or now as we know it as the Diabetes Link. And it's funny because another student wanted to start it, but at the time when I started my chapter, we were going through a hurricane. So everything had to be put on a hiatus. And when we came back, he had done the registered student organization setup of things, and I had done the chapter with the diabetes link setup of things. And we had no idea who each other were. So we had done all the background work and finally decided to come together. And when we did, it was just like meeting people and allies with diabetes from everywhere, from all walks of life, from different backgrounds. We had people who were athletes, who were Greeks, who were the brainiacs. It was just seeing like, okay, all of us are under this same front. We have different perspectives, but we can come together once, twice a month just to find the betterment of diabetes for this campus. And it would be interesting because before the pandemic, we wanted to see how we could bring more accessibility and more therapy options and supplies to campus for those students who can't leave or can't get back home, or don't really know where to get insulin or vials or alcohol swabs. So we wanted to really make it a way that it could be accessible close by. But I think on top of that, it's just to say, okay, we are all going through our own struggle with it. We know what the other person is going through in a way. We can kind of empathize sometimes. A lot of times we have to sympathize, but how we would end our meetings is would be almost like vent sessions, but it would turn into laughing sessions because it would be a situation where, can you believe this happened to me in my class? Can you believe my pump ran off during this ceremony? And it would just, the stories would get more and more ridiculous, and it would just be horrible situations that we would think about like, wow, this is really what we're living. And it would just be a way to bond and connect and to celebrate each other. Whereas, the stigma behind diabetes is that usually you might be depressed, or there's not really much you can do. You're just going to take it and go with it. But that's not what I wanted to do. And the people that I associate myself, that's not what they want us to do either. And especially when I got to college and after college, I knew that I wanted to be a leader and I wanted to be engaged in what happens on my campus and in my community. So I always put that at the forefront. There's someone without a voice, or they have a voice and they don't know that they have it. And I want to be that person that they know, if I don't have a voice, I know that this person is going to say something, or they're going to be able to start that push for what we need to change.
That's great, Shay. I mean, I love how you're turning your diabetes into a way that you can use it to inspire other people and also, advocate for those people who don't yet realize that they have a voice or, don't feel comfortable yet at the moment to share their story and everything. So that's amazing. And I didn't realize that you had started your own diabetes link chapter at your college. That is all awesome, and awesome ways too to meet other people, living with diabetes. And, you did mention too, turning to the internet. There's so many Facebook groups available to meet other people living with diabetes. And on social media in general, I feel like if you go on Instagram or TikTok, there's so many different people on there sharing their stories. And if you also go to diabetes.org/blog, we have a lot of people who share their stories on there as well. And if anyone who's tuning in right now, I see some people who are tuning in also are living with diabetes. We'd love to hear your story. Please share it. Please share it on diabetes.org/blog, because that is so important. The more stories, we share, the more people who are inspired to share their own. And it's so, so important to do that.
And I will just add this, it's like sometimes it's the people with diabetes that encourage you and they don't even know it
Mhm.
sometimes. So I can say for my chapter, we had a group chat and it would literally be a place for people to put, okay, I'm across campus, but I don't have skin tag or I don't have an infusion site. Can someone come meet me halfway so I don't have to drive all the way home? And it was not just a support hub, but it was a resource hub, because that's what we need to survive. And I can at least say when I started my chapter of the diabetes link, it was kind of a funny situation because, like I said, we were in the middle of a hurricane and it was Hurricane Florence. And some people didn't know the severity that Wilmington was hit. So, one representative from the Diabetes Link called me and was asking, okay, how's the chapter going? Do you all need anything? Is everything okay? And I'm like, actually, no, we're not getting the resources we need because there's no gas. There's not really stores open. We have just been in a hurricane. And they're like, oh my goodness, we didn't know. And they're just asking these things like, okay, do you need resources like in other ways, just past chapter things? Like, is everyone able to get their diabetes supplies? Does everyone have their insulin? Is everyone okay? And everyone was fine. And just to see that camaraderie and that fraternal support, even from people you don't really know, that helps and goes a long way.
Definitely. I like how you said a resource hub, and you're all there to support each other and each other's needs. That's so great to see everyone coming together like that. It's always so important. So with living with diabetes, what have you learned, would you say, over the years, or what's the biggest thing you've learned from living with diabetes?
I don't think I learned how much I could really push myself. And that's to say that, okay, even when you're young, you think you can do X, Y, and Z, and that's just it. But with diabetes, it's like, okay, you're doing XYZ tasks, but then you're also jumping over a hurdle. And then you're actually swimming to the next post. And there's all these other obstacles that you have to go through that you don't realize. And you get so used to it that you master it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's no really mastering diabetes because it's not a test, but it's like you become an advocate for yourself. you become that person who's carb counting. So you're like a little mathematician. But there's just so many different abilities within yourself or within myself that I didn't notice were there. And that just because society or a group of people are putting a stigma on a disease, on what they think it means, it doesn't have to be that way for everyone.
Mm-mm.
So my diabetes isn't the next person's diabetes. And just to be able to make it individualized and make it work for me and make it work for the situations and the communities that I'm in, I didn't know that it was that intense. And
Mhm.
I'm glad that I got to learn that, because in my head, I feel like diabetes is project management.
Mhm.
And all that to say, there's a lot of moving parts, but you're the study, you're the project at hand. And all of these things go into your survival. It goes into how well you are able to maintain every day. It
Yeah.
goes into improving your quality of life. And I think the biggest lesson from that is saying you're in the driver's seat,
Mhm.
and your decisions are going to affect what happens. Life happens, but we get back in the driver's seat. And I'm a very religious person, and I always like to say, God, take the wheel.
Mhm.
And I just let him take it over and let me see that he has me safe and he has me taken care of.
That is so, I think that is such an important message too for anyone who's listening right now or might be listening to this talk later. No, you are in control. And just because there's so many obstacles that, may make things seem like unattainable, you can still do all those things that you wanted to do also before you were diagnosed with diabetes. Might take you a little longer to get there, but you can still do all those things. And I think it makes you so much stronger of a person too. And it sounds like you are pushing through, Shay. You are doing a great job, and you are you are inspiring so many people along the way. I mean, you are truly, moving forward in life, and you're not letting your diabetes stop you, which is awesome.
I still remember a time when it was around the time I had first gotten diagnosed, and it was around Christmas time. We were out, we were Christmas shopping, and I checked my blood sugar and I said, "Oh, it's high. I guess we have to go home now." And my mom looks at it, she's like, "Do not let this stop you from living your life." And she's like, "We're going to correct it and we're going to keep on going." And that's the mindset. Correction and keep going. You trip up, keep going.
Keep going.
Even if you wake up and you're like, "I cannot give my all today,"
Mhm.
give half. Just keep on going. Never stop moving.
Don't stop moving. Wow, that is important. And I think too, Shay, is there any other advice that you would give, someone who is just diagnosed with diabetes, or maybe the parents of someone who is just diagnosed with diabetes?
Absolutely. And I would say two different pieces of advice. For parents who have a child that was just diagnosed, your child is okay.
Hmm.
They are going to be okay. You don't have to micromanage everything that they do. They are going to live. What we know about diabetes now is not what we knew about it in 1922. Just allow them to have that freedom, allow them to be a regular kid, because that's something that they won't get back. But there are so many alternatives to just living that normal life. Someone wants to go have pizza, they want to go stuff their faces with a cupcake, let them, within means. And I am not a doctor, so it's not health information, but it's just to say there's ways to correct this. You want to have something like that, take your insulin, go exercise. Just make sure that you're healthy and make sure that they're healthy. Because if they're not happy, it's going to be hard for them to be successful. And it's going to be hard for them to not feel like an outsider, like this disease tries to make us feel anyway.
Hmm.
So I would say promote normalcy, have fun, laugh because even though this is a hard disease, it has some very, very funny things that it allows you to do. I have so many stories that I could go through just because of my diabetes that you just have to look back and laugh at. But for persons with diabetes, I'd say that we are all in this together. I may be on this platform today, but somebody else can be on it next week or next month. And it doesn't even have to be this platform, it could just be encouraging a friend.
Mhm.
And just because we may have a high day or a low day, or we may try to explain it to a person who has no idea what we're talking about. And you could be, I've had situations like, oh my goodness, I'm really high right now. And I'm talking about my blood sugar. They're like, I didn't know you did that. I'm like, I don't do that. And it's just like that language barrier. That's what people don't notice is that diabetes is literally a whole nother language. And just explaining that to persons who don't have diabetes or people who are professionals, it can be tiring, but sometimes it can be worth it because you would want a person to be informed about your diabetes and not be in a dire situation where nobody knows what's going on. And we're not saying that it happens, but life happens, emergencies happen, and it's always good to be prepared. And if you need resources, if you need something to help you feel better, reach out. There are so many things out in the space of the internet, in the world, and just in our own communities that we may not even know about that can really be life changing for us.
Wow, that's great advice, and especially too how you talked a little bit about, parents too of children who are newly diagnosed, promote normalcy. Your kids are still a kid, they're not diabetes. And I think that's so important because they're going to feel like more of an outsider if you're treating them like that. And just letting them know that they can be a kid and not, there's these things they have to do along the way, but that's just part of their lifestyle. They can still do all those things, and you don't have to, you don't have to limit yourself, and it's all about balance. If you're going to a party, sure, have the treat. It's not gonna ruin you. It's so important to know that. And I thank you for sharing all this great advice and sharing a little bit about your stories. This has been wonderful. And one last thing, too, before we begin to wrap up, what are you doing today professionally?
Ah, so I am actually a medical writer and I write informed consent forms. So if you're ever in a clinical trial and you have to sign these long forms that tell you about the breakdown of the study, that's my job. And I love this job because the times that I am able to get rheumatoid studies or diabetes studies, I feel like I'm talking to my community. And the times that I don't get those studies, I get to learn about another community and turn the protocol into layman's terms. And that's literally what it is as a medical writer. You're making the patient aware, you're putting scientific language into regular conversational talk. And I love what I do. And in addition to that, I am a student at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, studying clinical research and product development. And of course, of my research, it has to focus on diabetes. Right now, I'm really looking at type 1. That's my favorite area. Hence, I have type 1.
Mhm.
But I also know that diabetes is a lot bigger. So I am doing my research on diabetes and technology perspectives.
Wow, well, we are very proud of everything that you're doing and how you're using your diabetes also in your career and, to help move the needle forward closer to a cure also. This is exciting and we're so proud of you here at the American Diabetes Association. You'll have to keep us posted on everything post grad school as well that you're doing. Um,
Absolutely.
This has been great, though. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in today and who will be watching this talk later. And if you would like to follow along on Shay's journey, Shay, would you be able to share with how people can follow along?
Of course. On LinkedIn, please follow me. It's just my name, Shay Webb. And on Instagram, feel free to follow me at Shay D1T. So it's T1D backwards, but it's my middle initial. So why not? It's at Shay D1T, SHAY, the letter D, the number one, and the letter T.
That's great. Well, and thank you for your willingness to have other people follow along on your journey. Truly that's building that, sense of community, and that's amazing. And everyone to know that we at the American Diabetes Association are here for you too. And if you ever need someone to talk to, definitely message us on any of the social pages. And, we're also happy to connect you with Shay or anyone else who you would like to be connected with and just follow along on someone else's journey living with diabetes. So important to, have those people that you're able to be connected with. So thank you for everyone. And thank you, Shay, so much for sharing your story. This has been amazing. And we hope to have you back sometime in the future.
Absolutely. You will all will definitely see me. And if you want to see me before then, feel free to reach out to me on my socials. I'm receptive and I'm always open to hear anything anyone has to say.
Fantastic. And thank you for everyone tuning in again. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday and a wonderful weekend. We will see you back here soon. Bye everyone.